Long ago, before anyone had ever heard of America, there were people living on distant lands, lands that no European had ever seen. These lands were full of mystery, beauty, and new opportunities. But how did Europe first learn about these distant shores? It all started with a man named Christopher Columbus. In the late 1400s, people in Europe were curious about the world beyond their own borders. The old maps didn't show much. There were just blank spaces where they didn't know what was out there. Europe's leaders were eager to find faster ways to trade with Asia. The roads to the east were long and dangerous, so the search for new trade routes became very important. At the time, there was a big belief that the world was round, but no one knew how to get to Asia by sea. Ships could only travel as far as the known world, and the rest was a giant unknown. But one man, Christopher Columbus, believed there was a way. Columbus was born in Italy, in the city of Genoa, around 1451. He was fascinated by the idea of sailing to the east by traveling west. He thought that if he sailed far enough west, he would reach Asia. It wasn't a new idea. Others had thought about it too. But Columbus was determined to make it happen. He spent years trying to convince the leaders of Europe to fund his trip. Finally, after much struggle, Spain's King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella agreed to help him. They gave him 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. In August of 1492, Columbus set sail from Spain, hoping to reach Asia. He sailed across the Atlantic Ocean, which was very dangerous. His crew was scared. They were sailing into the unknown, and many people feared the ocean was endless. Days turned into weeks, and the crew started to lose hope. They were afraid they would never see land again. But Columbus didn't give up. He encouraged his men, and after more than 2 months at sea, something amazing happened. Land was spotted. On October 12, 1492, the crew finally saw a small island in the distance. They had made it. But Columbus wasn't in Asia. He had landed on an island in the Caribbean not far from the Americas. At first, Columbus thought he had reached the East Indies, a part of Asia. He called the people he met Indians because he believed he was near India. But in reality, he had discovered a whole new world, one that would change history forever. Columbus made several more trips to the New World, but he never realized he had found something entirely new. He died believing he had reached Asia. Even though Columbus wasn't the first person to reach the Americas, indigenous peoples had been living there for thousands of years. His voyages were the first to bring attention to the lands across the ocean. His discovery opened the door for other explorers to come and learn more about these new lands. One of the most famous of these explorers was Amerigo Vespucci, an Italian sailor. Vespucci made several trips to the Americas and was the first to suggest that the lands Columbus had found were not Asia, but a new world altogether. In fact, the Americas are named after him. Soon, many other explorers followed. Hernán Cortés sailed to Mexico, Vasco Núñez de Balboa crossed the Panama Isthmus, and Ferdinand Magellan's expedition circled the globe. These explorers were looking for riches, new lands, and ways to spread Christianity. They changed the course of history by connecting the two worlds, Europe and the Americas. But Columbus's discovery wasn't just about exploration. It led to massive changes. People from Europe began to settle in the Americas, bringing new animals, plants, and ideas. This would forever change the way people lived in both worlds. However, Columbus's voyages also marked the beginning of darker chapters. The arrival of Europeans brought suffering to the native peoples of the Americas. Diseases, violence, and forced labor drastically affected the native populations. This part of history is also important to understand. In the end, Columbus's discovery was a turning point in history. It wasn't just about finding land, it was about connecting distant worlds and changing the course of humanity's journey. Today, we celebrate Columbus's courage and curiosity, but we also reflect on the complex history that followed his journey across the ocean.